There I was, stuffing my clothes into garbage bags while my sister Sarah stood in the doorway of what used to be my room, arms crossed with that smug smile I'd grown to hate. The sound of fabric tearing echoed through the air as I frantically tried to pack 13 years of memories into cheap plastic bags. From now on, this room is mine, Jenny. I have to host my friends, and let's be honest, you're 25 and still living at home like a loser. I looked up at her, my hands trembling, as I folded my favourite sweater, the one Mum had given me for Christmas 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me that Sarah was 22 and also living at home. But apparently, that logic didn't apply to the golden child. Sarah, this has been my room since I was 12. Where am I supposed to go? She just shrugged, examining her perfectly manicured nails that probably cost more than my monthly coffee budget. I don't know. Figure it out. Maybe it's time you got your own place instead of mooching off Mum and Dad. The audacity was breathtaking. This coming from the girl who'd never worked a day in her life, who got a new car for her birthday while I was still taking the bus, who had Daddy's credit card for her influencer career that consisted of posting selfies and unboxing hauls. That's when I heard footsteps, and our parents appeared behind her. My heart jumped. Surely they would put an end to this madness. I desperately looked to them for support, my eyes pleading for just one person in this family to stand up for me. Mom, Dad, please, tell me you're not seriously okay with this. But Dad just cleared his throat uncomfortably, the same way he did when he had to fire someone at work. Jenny, honey, Sarah has a point. She needs space for her social life, and you, well, maybe this will motivate you to become more independent. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt my chest tighten, like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart. But what hurt more was seeing my own mother avoid eye contact, suddenly finding the hallway carpet fascinating. Mum, I whispered, hoping she'd at least look at me. She finally raised her eyes, and I saw something that made my stomach drop. Pity, not love, not protectiveness, not even anger at the unfairness of the situation. Just pity for her pathetic older daughter who couldn't get her life together. Sweetie, Sarah's friends are coming over this weekend for her birthday celebration. It's important for her image, you understand? Important for her image. 25 years of being the good daughter, the one who helped with bills when Dad's business was struggling, who took care of Mom when she was sick with pneumonia, who never caused trouble, never asked for anything extravagant, never brought home drama. And this was my reward. My own family choosing my spoiled younger sister over me. Again. I remember the exact moment it happened, when Sarah smirked and said, "Don't worry, Jenny, I'll take really good care of your old room. Maybe I'll even let you visit it sometime." The way she emphasised visit, like I was some distant relative who might drop by occasionally. That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke shifted, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place after years of trying to force it into the wrong spot. "Fine," I said quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll be out by tomorrow." Sarah's expression flickered with surprise. She'd expected me to cry, to beg, to throw a tantrum like I had when we were kids. But I was done playing her game by her rules. That's great, Jenny. I knew you'd understand eventually," she stammered, clearly thrown off by my calm response. As I continued packing, I could hear her in the background, already calling her friends, talking about how she had finally gotten her own space, and how they could do whatever they wanted now. Each word was like fuel being poured on a fire that was just beginning to burn. But here's the thing about rock bottom. And I mean the real rock bottom, not the dramatic version people post about on social media. It gives you a solid foundation to build your comeback. As I dragged my belongings to the cramped storage room they'd generously offered me, something inside me didn't just snap. It crystallized. Sarah wanted to play games. Fine. She had absolutely no idea what she'd just unleashed. See, while she'd been busy posting selfies and burning through Dad's money on designer clothes, and expensive brunches. I'd been quietly building something. 3 years of coding boot camps after work, freelance projects that kept me up until 2 a.m, side hustles that nobody in my family bothered to ask about because they were too busy funding Sarah's lifestyle and listening to her complain about how hard her life was. Every night for 3 years, while they slept, I was learning. Python, JavaScript, web development, app creation. Every weekend they went out to family dinners without inviting me. I was networking, building connections, creating something they couldn't see because they never bothered to look. The storage room was barely big enough for a single bed and a small dresser. No windows, no natural light, and it smelled like mothballs and old paint. As I set up my laptop on the makeshift desk I'd created from a cardboard box, I opened my banking app and stared at the numbers on my screen. $2.8 million. Money I'd been saving and investing while everyone thought I was just Jenny the failure. Money from apps I developed, websites I'd built, cryptocurrency investments I'd made when everyone laughed at me for wasting time on internet money. I'd been planning to surprise them eventually, maybe put a down payment on a nice apartment, show them I wasn't the loser they thought I was. But sitting in that storage room, listening to Sarah's laughter echo through the walls as she redecorated my room, I realised I'd been thinking too small. Way too small. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I put on my best outfit, not that anyone in my family had ever noticed, and walked out of that house without saying goodbye. I had somewhere important to be. The real estate office downtown was one of those places I'd always admired from the outside. Floor-to-ceiling windows displaying photographs of mansions that seemed like they belonged in magazines rather than real life. The kind of place where dreams were either made or crushed, depending on the size of your bank account. I pushed through the glass doors, feeling the cool air conditioning hit my face and the plush carpet beneath my feet. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a designer blazer, looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone suggesting I probably didn't belong there. "No, but I'd like to speak with someone about the Riverside mansion. I'm interested in making an offer." She raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Let me see if Victoria is available. She handles our premium listings." Minutes later, Victoria appeared, a polished woman in her 50s with silver hair and the kind of confidence that came from years of closing million-dollar deals. She extended her hand with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I understand you're interested in the Riverside property. It's quite an investment, $2.8 million. Perhaps we could start by looking at some of our more accessible options?" I could feel her sizing me up, making assumptions based on my appearance, my age, probably my gender too. It was the same look I'd gotten from my family my entire life, the look that said I wasn't quite enough. "Actually, I'd like to make an offer on the Riverside mansion. Cash. Full asking price." The office went silent. Even the receptionist stopped typing and looked up from her computer. Victoria's professional smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "I'm sorry, did you say cash for the entire amount?" I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward her. $2.8 million. Will a wire transfer work, or would you prefer a cashier's check? Victoria's eyes widened as she stared at the balance on my screen. Her entire demeanour shifted in real time, from politely dismissive to genuinely attentive. Yes, of course. A wire transfer would be perfect. Let me get the paperwork started immediately." As she scrambled to pull up the listing on her computer, I allowed myself a moment to savour the shift in power. This was what respect looked like when it was backed by cold, hard cash. This was what happened when people realised they'd underestimated you. "The property is absolutely stunning," Victoria said, her voice now warm and eager. 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, infinity pool, home theatre, wine cellar, and the most incredible view of the river. You have exquisite taste. Exquisite taste. Funny how my taste had suddenly improved in the span of 30 seconds. I'd like to close as soon as possible, I said. Money is no object. Of course, I can have the paperwork ready by tomorrow morning. We'll need to schedule an inspection, but with a cash offer like this, I'm sure the sellers will be very motivated to move quickly. As I signed the initial paperwork, I couldn't help but think about Sarah back home, probably already rearranging the furniture in my old room, planning her party, basking in what she thought was her victory. She had no idea that while she was celebrating taking my room, I was buying a mansion that would make our entire house look like a garden shed. The irony was delicious. She'd kicked me out to make space for her friends, and now I was about to have more space than she could ever dream of. 6 bedrooms versus her 1 stolen room, an infinity pool versus the bathtub we'd shared growing up, a wine cellar versus the mini fridge in her room where she kept her energy drinks. "Congratulations, Miss Johnson," Victoria said, shaking my hand with genuine warmth now. "You're going to love this property. It's truly a once-in-a-lifetime home." A once-in-a-lifetime home for a once-in-a-lifetime revenge. As I walked out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Real power. Not the kind that came from being loud or demanding or manipulative like Sarah, but the quiet kind that came from having options, from being underestimated, from having the resources to rewrite the rules of the game entirely. My phone buzzed with a text from Mum. "Jenny, where are you? Sarah wants to know if you'll be home for dinner." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "I'm going to be busy for a while. Don't wait up." Because I had a mansion to move into, a new life to build, and a sister who was about to learn that actions have consequences. She'd wanted to teach me about independence. Well, class was about to begin, and I was going to be the teacher this time. The best part? She had no idea what was coming. 3 days later, I was standing in the marble foyer of my new home, watching the movers bring in furniture that cost more than most people's cars. The chandelier above me caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting rainbow patterns across walls that belonged to me. Actually, belonged to me. The house was even more breathtaking than the photos had suggested. The main staircase curved elegantly to the 2nd floor, where my master suite overlooked the infinity pool and the river beyond. 6 bedrooms meant I could have a different view from my window every day of the week if I wanted to. The wine cellar was already stocked with bottles that the previous owner had left behind, bottles worth more than Sarah's entire wardrobe. But the real masterpiece was the home theatre. Leather recliners, a screen bigger than the wall in our old living room, and surround sound that made you feel like you were inside the movie. I'd already planned exactly what I was going to watch first. Something about family betrayal seemed fitting. My phone had been buzzing constantly for the past 3 days. Mum calling to ask where I was, Dad leaving voicemails about being responsible, Sarah texting increasingly frantic messages about when I was coming home. I'd ignored them all, too busy coordinating deliveries and meeting with interior designers. But it was time. I walked out to my new infinity pool, the one that seemed to blend seamlessly with the river in the distance, and took a photo. Just a simple shot of my hand holding a glass of wine from my own cellar, with the pool and the sunset in the background. Nothing too obvious, nothing that screamed, "Look at my mansion." Just enough to plant a seed. I posted it on Instagram with a simple caption, "New beginnings." Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Friends from college asking where I was. Co-workers wondering about the fancy setup. And then, inevitably, the call I'd been waiting for. "Jenny, oh my God, where are you? Mum said you disappeared 3 days ago, and now you're posting these weird photos. Are you okay?" Sarah's voice was high-pitched with that particular strain, that meant she was trying to sound concerned, while actually being nosy. I could picture her in my old room. Her room, now, probably doing her makeup while scrolling through my social media. "I'm fine, Sarah. Better than fine, actually. I took your advice about becoming more independent." "Your advice? What are you talking about? And where are you? That photo looks like you're at some fancy resort or something." I smiled, settling deeper into my poolside lounge chair. "Not a resort. Home." "Home? What home? You live here, Jenny, with us. Mum made your favourite dinner tonight thinking you'd come back." The fact that she said "with us," like I was some kind of charity case living in their house instead of the family home I'd grown up in, spoke volumes. But I let it slide. I had bigger fish to fry. "Actually, Sarah, I don't live there anymore. Remember, you needed my room for your friends. So I found my own place." There was a pause, and I could hear her walking around, probably pacing the way she did when she was trying to process information that didn't fit her worldview. "Okay, fine, you found some apartment. Good for you. But you don't have to be so dramatic about it, disappearing for 3 days without telling anyone where you went. It's not an apartment, Sarah." "What do you mean it's not an apartment? What else would it be? You can't afford anything bigger than a studio on whatever you make at that boring job of yours." And there it was, the casual dismissal, the automatic assumption that I was less than, that I couldn't possibly have achieved anything significant. It was almost too easy. "I bought a house, Sarah. A big one." I could hear her laugh, that cruel little giggle she'd perfected over the years. "Right, Jenny, you bought a house. With what money? You've been living at home for 25 years. The same money I've been making, while you've been spending Dad's credit card on designer purses and influencer courses that never influenced anyone." The laughing stopped. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "It means while you were busy playing princess, I was building an empire. 3 years of coding, app development, cryptocurrency investments, freelance work. You know, actual work. The kind that pays real money." "You're lying. You're just trying to make me feel bad because you're jealous that I got the room." "This is so typical of you, Jenny. Always trying to one-up me with your weird little fantasies." I stood up and walked to the edge of my infinity pool, looking out over the water that stretched to the horizon. "Sarah, what's our address?" "What? Why are you asking me that?" "Just tell me our address, the house where we grew up." It's 425 Maple Street." "Why?" "Google 847 Riverside Drive and tell me what you see." There was silence on the other end, followed by the sound of typing. Then more silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. This is just some random mansion. Why are you showing me this?" "Because that's where I'm calling you from. That's my new address. That's my house, Sarah. My 6-bedroom, 7-bathroom, infinity pool, home theatre, wine cellar mansion." The silence stretched so long, I thought she might have hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "You're lying." "Am I? Hold on. Let me send you a video." I switched to video call, and I'll never forget the look on her face when she saw me standing in my marble kitchen, the river view stretching out behind me through the massive windows. Her mouth literally fell open. This can't be real. This is some kind of joke, right? You're at a friend's house or something." I walked through the house, showing her room after room, each one bigger and more luxurious than the last. The master bedroom with its walk-in closet that was larger than the storage room they'd given me. The home office with built-in bookshelves and a view of the gardens. The formal dining room with seating for 12. "Jenny, how is this possible? You don't have this kind of money. Nobody just buys a mansion out of nowhere. Remember when you used to make fun of me for staying up late on my computer? when you'd roll your eyes and call me a nerd for learning coding, when you'd laugh at me for playing with internet money. I could see her trying to process this information. Her perfect little world where she was the successful sister and I was the failure starting to crumble around her. You made millions? From what? From sitting in your room typing on a computer? 3 million, actually. Well, 2.8 after I bought this place. But I've got more coming in every month from my apps and investments, enough to live like this forever. The video call went quiet, except for the sound of her breathing. I could see her looking around what used to be my room, probably seeing it differently now. The small space that had seemed like such a prize, suddenly looking cramped and ordinary. "I don't understand," she said finally. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what, Sarah, that I was successful. When would I have done that? Between you calling me a loser and taking my room, or maybe during one of those family dinners where you spent the whole time talking about your latest Instagram post while everyone ignored me. But if you had money, why were you living at home? Why didn't you move out before?" I sat down on my new Italian leather couch and looked directly into the camera. Because I was saving. Because I was planning. Because I knew that when I finally made my move, I wanted it to be spectacular. I wanted to buy something so incredible that no one could ever question my success again. This is insane. Mum and Dad don't know, do they? Not yet, but they will. I'm having a housewarming party next weekend. I've already invited some people, including some of your friends, actually. Emma and Jess seemed very interested when I ran into them at the coffee shop yesterday. Sarah's face went pale. "You invited my friends to your house?" "Well, technically, they're not just your friends anymore, are they? They're my friends too, and they're very excited to see what boring old Jenny has been up to all these years." "Jenny, you can't do this. You can't just buy a mansion and throw it in everyone's face." "I'm not throwing it in anyone's face, Sarah. I'm just living my life, in my house, with my friends, the same way you wanted to live your life in your room with your friends." I could see her getting angry now, that familiar red flush creeping up her neck. "This isn't fair. You let me think you were a failure. You let me feel sorry for you." "I never asked you to feel sorry for me. You did that all on your own, just like you decided I was mooching off Mum and Dad, and that I was a loser, and that I didn't deserve my own room in the house where I grew up. But if you had money, why didn't you just move out when I asked for the room?" I smiled, and I'm sure it wasn't a nice smile. "Because you didn't ask, Sarah. You demanded, you took, you humiliated me in front of our parents and made me pack my life into garbage bags like I was some kind of unwanted tenant. I didn't mean..." "You meant every word. And you know what? I'm glad you did. Because if you hadn't been so cruel, so dismissive, so absolutely certain that I was beneath you, I might have settled for less. I might have bought a nice apartment and called it a day. But you pushed me to think bigger." The call ended abruptly. She'd hung up on me, but within seconds my phone was buzzing with texts. "This is impossible. You're lying. How did you hide this from us? Mom and Dad are never going to believe this. You can't just abandon your family. This isn't over." I poured myself another glass of wine and walked back out to the pool. The sun was setting over the river, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that I'd never been able to see from my old bedroom window. My old bedroom that wasn't even mine anymore. Tomorrow, I'd call my parents. Tomorrow, I'd start the real phase of my revenge. Tonight, I was just going to enjoy the sound of silence and the taste of victory. Sarah thought she'd won when she took my room, but she'd actually given me the motivation to take everything. And this was just the beginning. The next morning, I was sipping coffee on my terrace when my phone rang. Mum's contact photo filled the screen. That family portrait from 2 Christmases ago where I was standing slightly apart from everyone else. Like even the photographer sensed I didn't quite belong. Jennifer Marie Johnson, what on earth is going on? Sarah is hysterical. She's telling me some insane story about you buying a mansion, and she's been crying all night. I could hear Dad in the background asking questions, and Sarah's muffled sobbing coming from somewhere nearby. The golden child was having a meltdown, which meant the whole house was probably in chaos. It's not a story, Mum. I did buy a mansion. Would you like to come see it? There was a long pause. I could picture Mum sitting at our old kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg that Dad never got around to fixing, trying to process information that didn't fit the narrative they'd all built about me. Honey, you can't just buy a mansion. They cost millions of dollars. Are you having some kind of breakdown? Did you take out loans you can't afford? Oh, God, are you in debt to dangerous people? The fact that her mind immediately went to me being in trouble rather than me being successful told me everything I needed to know about how my own mother saw me. No debt, Mum. No breakdown. Just success. The kind you get from working hard while other people spend their time judging you. But how is this possible? You work at that little tech company. Your salary can't be... My salary isn't what bought this house. The apps I developed in my spare time did. The cryptocurrency I invested in did. The freelance projects I worked on every night while you all thought I was just wasting time on the computer did. I could hear her whispering to Dad, explaining what I just said. Then, Dad's voice came through, that patronising tone he used when he thought I was being unrealistic. Jenny, sweetheart, I think you might be confused about how much money you actually have. Maybe you should come home and we can look at your finances together. Sometimes these online investment things can be scams. Dad, I paid cash. $2.8 million. Cash. The line went completely silent. That's not possible, Mum whispered. Would you like me to send you the closing documents? Or maybe you'd prefer to see the house in person. I'm having a housewarming party this Saturday. You're all invited, of course. A housewarming party? Dad's voice had shifted to that careful tone people use when they think they're talking to someone who might be having a mental health crisis. Jenny, where exactly is this house you think you bought? 847 Riverside Drive, the big white mansion with the iron gates. You know, the one we used to drive past when I was little, and I'd say, someday I'll live in a house like that, and you'd tell me to be more realistic. Another pause. Longer this time. You're serious, Mom said finally. You're actually serious. Dead serious. Would you like me to pick you up Saturday evening? I can send my driver. Your driver? Sarah's voice came through clearly now, apparently having grabbed the phone. What driver? This is getting ridiculous. Well, I could drive myself, but the Porsche is still at the dealership getting detailed, and I didn't want to take the Tesla since I'm expecting rain. The absolute silence that followed was golden. I let it stretch for a full 10 seconds before continuing. Anyway, the party starts at 7. Cocktail attire. I've hired caterers, so don't worry about bringing anything except yourselves and open minds. I hung up before anyone could respond. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm, with just enough breeze to make the outdoor space comfortable. The caterers had transformed my backyard into something out of a magazine. String lights created a canopy over the pool area. The bar was stocked with top-shelf liquor, and servers in crisp white shirts circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that cost more per plate than most people spent on dinner. My guests started arriving at 6:30. Emma and Jess came first, Sarah's former best friends, who'd been surprisingly easy to turn once they learned about my success. They'd spent the week texting me asking about my investment strategies and wondering if I had any advice for ambitious young women. Jenny, this place is absolutely incredible, Emma gushed, her eyes wide as she took in the soaring ceilings and crystal chandelier. I had no idea you were doing so well. Most people didn't, I replied, handing her a glass of champagne. I prefer to let my actions speak louder than my words. More guests filtered in. Co-workers who'd never paid attention to me before, college friends who'd lost touch, neighbours from the old street who'd heard rumours and wanted to see for themselves. Each arrival brought the same reaction: shock, awe, and a sudden desire to be my best friend. At exactly 7:15, a black car pulled up to my circular driveway. I watched from the living room window as my family climbed out, their faces a mixture of disbelief and something that looked like fear. Dad was wearing his best suit, the one he saved for weddings and funerals. Mom had on the dress she'd bought for Sarah's college graduation. And Sarah was dressed to kill in a designer outfit I'd never seen before, probably purchased specifically for tonight with Daddy's credit card. They stood at my front door for a full minute before ringing the bell, probably trying to process the reality of where they were. I opened the door with my biggest smile. Welcome to my home. Mum stepped inside first, her mouth falling open as she took in the marble floors, the artwork on the walls, the massive staircase spiralling up to the second floor. Jenny, this is impossible, I suggested. That seems to be everyone's favourite word today. Dad was staring at the chandelier like he was trying to calculate its cost. How much did you say this place cost? I didn't say, but since you're curious, it was 2.8 million, plus another 300,000 in furnishings and renovations. I wanted everything to be perfect. Sarah hadn't said a word. She was looking around like she was searching for hidden cameras, like this had to be some elaborate prank. Come on, let me give you the tour. Everyone's out by the pool, but I wanted you to see the house first. I led them through room after room, watching their expressions change from skepticism to amazement to something that looked uncomfortably like envy. The wine cellar made Dad whistle low under his breath. The home theatre had Mum asking how much the sound system cost. The master suite with its view of the river left them all speechless. But it was the home office that really got to them. The walls were covered with framed certificates, my coding bootcamp graduations, awards from programming competitions, screenshots of my apps hitting #1 in their categories. Everything they'd never bothered to ask about, displayed in one room. You won all of these? Mum's voice was small, almost wounded. When? How did we not know? You never asked. In 3 years of me working nights and weekends, taking courses, building apps, none of you ever asked what I was doing. You just assumed I was wasting time. Sarah finally spoke, her voice bitter. So, this was all planned? You were just waiting to humiliate us? Humiliate you? Sarah, I invited you to a party at my house. How is that humiliating? Because you let us think you were a failure. You let us treat you like what? Like someone who didn't matter. Like someone whose room could be taken away on a whim. Like someone who was mooching off the family instead of contributing. Dad cleared his throat. Jenny, we never meant to make you feel... Didn't you, though? When you sided with Sarah about the room, what did you think you were doing? When you told me I needed to be more independent while funding her lifestyle, what message did you think you were sending? We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of years of dismissal and favouritism hanging in the air between us. The party, I said finally. Everyone's waiting to meet my family. We walked outside to find the party in full swing. 50 people mingling around my pool, admiring the view, chatting about business and investments and success. The kind of party Sarah had always wanted to throw, but never had the resources for. Emma spotted us first. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson and Sarah, Jenny's told us so much about you. I watched Sarah's face as Emma, her former best friend, immediately started gushing about my house, my success, my incredible transformation. The same Emma, who used to barely acknowledge my existence, was now treating me like a celebrity while talking to Sarah like an afterthought. I just can't believe Jenny kept this secret for so long, Emma continued. She's so humble about her success. Did you know her cryptocurrency portfolio alone is worth over $1 million? More people gathered around us, all eager to meet the family of their successful host. They peppered my parents with questions about how proud they must be, how they must have known I was destined for greatness, how lucky they were to have such an accomplished daughter. I watched my family's faces as the evening progressed, Dad trying to take credit for encouraging my entrepreneurial spirit, Mum telling people she'd always believed in Jenny's potential, and Sarah growing quieter and paler as the night went on, as person after person praised me while barely acknowledging her. The final blow came when someone asked about our family dynamic. "Oh, we're so close," the woman gushed. "Sarah, you must be so proud of your big sister. It must be amazing having someone so successful to look up to." Sarah's smile was so forced it looked painful. "Yes, Jenny's always been surprising. I bet you're hoping some of her business sense rubs off on you. Do you work in tech too?" I'm an influencer." The woman nodded politely, but I could see the moment she lost interest. In a crowd full of entrepreneurs and investors, influencer suddenly sounded very small. As the evening wound down and the last guests filtered out, my family lingered on the terrace. The catering staff was cleaning up, and the string lights cast everything in a warm, golden glow. "I should probably drive you home," I said. "Unless you'd like to stay the night. I have plenty of guest rooms." "We should go," Dad said quietly. "This has been a lot to process." As we stood by their car, Mum reached out and touched my arm. "Jenny, I'm sorry. We're all sorry. We didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't want to know. There's a difference." Sarah was staring back at the house, all lit up against the night sky. "What happens now?" I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. Now you go back to your room, my old room, and I go back to my mansion, and we both live with the choices we've made." As their car disappeared down my driveway, I stood in my doorway looking out at my kingdom. The revenge was sweeter than I'd imagined, but this was still just the beginning. Phase 1 was complete. Now came the really fun part. 2 weeks after the housewarming party, I was in my home office reviewing quarterly reports from my app portfolio when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. "Miss Johnson? This is Victoria from Prestigious Properties. I have some rather urgent news about your neighbours." I leaned back in my Italian leather chair, looking out at the river through my floor-to-ceiling windows. "What about them?" "Well, it seems the Hendersons at 425 Maple Street are facing foreclosure. They've missed several mortgage payments, and the bank is moving forward with proceedings. I wanted to give you a heads up since you inquired about investment properties in that area." 425 Maple Street. My childhood home. The house where Sarah was probably sitting right now in what used to be my room, completely oblivious to the financial disaster brewing around her. "How much do they owe?" I asked, though I had a feeling I already knew where this was going. "About 400,000 on the remaining mortgage, plus fees and penalties. The bank wants to move quickly. They're asking 500,000 for a cash sale to avoid the foreclosure process." I hung up and immediately called my family's house. Mom answered on the third ring, her voice strained and tired. "Jenny, oh honey, I'm so glad you called. We need to talk." "Is everything okay, Mum?" There was a long pause, followed by what sounded like muffled crying. "No, sweetie, nothing's okay. Your father's business. The medical bills from when I was sick last year. We're in trouble, Jenny. Real trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "The bank called today. We have 30 days to come up with the back payments, or we lose the house. $40,000, Jenny. We don't have $40,000. I could hear Dad in the background, arguing with someone on another phone. Sarah's voice carried from upstairs, apparently oblivious to the crisis unfolding below her. How long has this been going on? I asked. Months. We didn't want to worry you kids, but it's gotten worse. The business loan payments, the medical expenses, Sarah's credit cards that we co-signed for, it all added up faster than we expected. Sarah's credit cards. Of course. Have you told Sarah? We're going to have to. She'll need to find somewhere else to live if we lose the house. We can't afford the apartment we'd have to move to with all of us together. I looked around my massive house, at the 6 empty bedrooms, at the guest wing that had never had a guest. Mum, what if I told you there was a solution? What do you mean? What if someone paid off the mortgage entirely? What if you never had to worry about losing the house? Jenny, honey, that's sweet of you to think about, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even with your new success, that's not realistic. Actually, Mum, it is. I want to buy the house. Silence. You want to what? I want to buy our house. From the bank, cash. No mortgage, no payments, no stress. But we couldn't pay you back. And where would we live? I smiled, even though she couldn't see me. You'd live there, rent-free, for as long as you want. Consider it my investment in family stability. Jenny, that's incredibly generous, but we can't accept that kind of charity from our own daughter. It's not charity, Mum. It's business. See, there's one small condition. What condition? Sarah moves out immediately. The house has 4 bedrooms. You, Dad, and 2 guest rooms for when people visit. Sarah is 22 years old with no job, no education, and no appreciation for what she has. It's time she learned what independence really means. Another long pause. Jenny, we can't just kick your sister out. You're not kicking her out. I am. It's my house now, remember? My property, my rules. And my rule is that adults who can't contribute to the household need to find their own way in the world. But she has nowhere to go. She can't afford rent. That's not my problem. She should have thought about that before taking my room, before running up credit card debt you can't afford, before spending her entire adult life being a parasite. Actions have consequences. I could hear Mum explaining the situation to Dad, their voices rising as they argued about what to do. Then Sarah's voice joined the conversation, shrill with panic as she realised what was happening. Let me talk to her, Sarah's voice came through clearly as she grabbed the phone. Jenny, you can't do this. You can't just buy our house and kick me out. Actually, I can. And I am. The sale goes through Monday morning. You have until Wednesday to pack your things and find somewhere else to live. This is insane. You're destroying our family over a stupid room. I'm saving our family, Sarah. Mom and Dad get to keep their home without financial stress, and you get to learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet. Everyone wins. Where am I supposed to go? I don't have any money. I hear there's a lovely storage unit facility about 10 minutes from here. Very affordable rates. Or maybe you could ask one of your influencer friends if they have a couch you could crash on. You are enjoying this, aren't you? You're enjoying destroying my life. I looked out at my infinity pool, sparkling in the afternoon sun. I'm enjoying saving my parents' home and giving you the independence you clearly think is so important. Isn't that what you told me? That I needed to figure out my own life instead of mooching off Mom and Dad? That was different. How was it different, Sarah? Because you're the pretty one, because you're the favourite, because you never thought there would be consequences for your actions. The line went quiet except for her heavy breathing. I hate you, she whispered. I know. but you'll thank me someday when you realize this was the best thing that ever happened to you. I'll never thank you for this. Never. We'll see. I hung up and immediately called Victoria back. I'll take it. 500,000 cash. I want the sale completed by Monday. Excellent. I'll have the paperwork ready first thing Monday morning. Monday came with a beautiful sunrise that I watched from my terrace while drinking coffee that cost more than Sarah used to spend on lunch. By 10 a.m., I owned 2 properties worth over $3 million combined. By noon, I was standing in the doorway of my childhood home, keys in hand, watching Sarah pack her designer clothes into the same garbage bags I'd used 2 weeks earlier. "This is temporary," she said, not looking at me as she stuffed everything into bags. "I'll figure something out and then I'll pay you back every penny and take this house back." "Good luck with that," I replied. "Though you might want to start by getting an actual job. I hear McDonald's is hiring." She whirled around, fury blazing in her eyes. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won." "I don't think I've won, Sarah. I know I have. This isn't over." "Yes, it is. It was over the moment you decided my room was yours to take. Everything that's happened since then has just been the natural consequence of that decision." She dragged her bags toward the door, then stopped and turned back to me. "You know what the funny thing is, Jenny? All that money, all that success, and you're still the same bitter, lonely person you always were. Money can't buy you a personality." I smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was a genuinely happy smile. "You're absolutely right, Sarah. Money can't buy personality. But you know what it can buy? Freedom, security, respect, power, and the ability to help the people I love while protecting them from the people who would hurt them." "I never hurt anyone." "You hurt me. You hurt Mum and Dad with your financial irresponsibility. You hurt everyone around you with your selfishness and your assumption that the world owed you something just for existing." She stood there for a moment, bags in hand, looking lost and confused and younger than her 22 years. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked, and for the first time, her voice wasn't angry or demanding. It was scared. "You're supposed to grow up, get a job, pay your own bills, learn that actions have consequences, and that other people matter too. Basically, everything I learned while you were busy being the favourite." She walked out without another word, and I watched her car disappear down Maple Street for the last time. Mum and Dad appeared in the doorway, looking older than I remembered, but relieved in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Thank you," Mum said simply. "I know this wasn't easy." Actually, it was easier than I thought it would be. Sarah needed to learn this lesson eventually. Better now, when she's young enough to recover, than in 10 years when her problems are bigger and her options are smaller. "Do you really think she'll be okay?" Dad asked. I looked around the house where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to code in secret, where I'd dreamed of bigger things while everyone around me assumed I'd never amount to anything. "She'll be fine. Sarah spent her whole life having things handed to her. Now she gets to discover what she's actually capable of when she has to rely on herself. It might be the best thing that ever happened to her." 6 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. "I got a job, marketing assistant at a startup. It's not much, but it's mine. Thank you for the push. I needed it more than I wanted to admit. S." I smiled and typed back, "Proud of you. There's always a guest room here when you want to visit, as long as you remember whose house it is." Her response came immediately. "I'll never forget. Your house, your rules. I earned that lesson the hard way. And that's how I turned my sister's cruelty into my greatest triumph. She thought she was taking my room, but she actually gave me the motivation to take everything. The mansion, the success, the respect, and ultimately the power to save my family and teach my sister the most important lesson of her life. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying someone. Sometimes it's forcing them to become the person they should have been all along. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they thank you for it in the end. As I sit here in my marble kitchen, sipping wine that costs more than Sarah's first monthly salary, I have just one thing to say. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for showing me exactly who I didn't want to be and exactly what I was capable of becoming. This is my story of how losing everything led me to gain everything. How betrayal became transformation. How the worst day of my life became the catalyst for the best decision I ever made. And the best part? This is just the beginning.